Hey guys, so today I'm doing a little bit of work in my sketchbook and I am going to be painting some fluffy, pretty pastel gouache clouds. I'm going to be painting these with the Turner gouache paints that I reviewed here on my channel recently. So to start, I have just mixed some blue and white together with a little bit of water, and I am laying down the background. When I work in my sketchbook, I am typically not as careful and as planned out as I am when I do a finished piece, because to me a sketchbook is more for experimentation and just kind of letting your creativity free flow onto the page. So because of that factor, you will likely notice that this project looks a little bit different stylistically from some of my other pieces that I've uploaded here onto YouTube. When I reviewed these Turner paints, one of the cons that I noted about them is that their opacity is a little bit weaker than some other brands of gouache paint. And as you look at my background here, you will be able to notice that there are some parts of it that are just a little bit patchy or streaky, which isn't a huge issue to me in my sketchbook, and also because one of the pros that I notice about these paints is that they can really be thinned out when you don't mix the white gouache with them, and they have a quality that's a lot more similar to watercolor. So I really like the versatility of them. But if you are someone who wants to use them strictly as gouache and have that very opaque matte finish, that might be something to consider before you purchase. So I'm laying down a purple base layer for these clouds. I don't have a lot of rhyme or reason to my process for this painting since I'm just playing around with the paints, but I chose a cool tone for the base layer because cool tones tend to recede a little more, whereas warm tones come more to the front. So as I layer, I will work into some pastel tones that are a little bit warmer. As these paints dry, they do lose even a little more opacity than what they appear to have when you first layer them onto the paper. With this painting with the clouds, where I'm going to be doing a lot of layers of gouache, that isn't a huge issue for me, but if it was a painting where I wanted to lay down one layer, I would probably be a little frustrated with these paints. I think that art supply preferences are such a personal thing. What one person really dislikes, another person can have beautiful results with, because it all really just depends on your style of painting, the techniques that you use with the products, and so on. So here on my channel, what I try to do is really give you guys the pros and cons of any given product. I talk about any problems that I've had with it or any potential problems that I see for people who would be painting in a different style or subject matter than I am. So I think anytime you watch a review, just keep that in mind, that you have to take into account what that artist is trying to do with something and how they're using it in relationship to how you would use that product, because there can really be a lot of differences between two different artists' techniques and work. Now I'm just adding in a few more of these light pink areas into the clouds, and then I am going to move into some pastel yellow color to really make the clouds come to the foreground and continue to build some layers and areas from that point on. One of Turner's claims with this product is that you are able to layer light colors over dark colors without experiencing any bleeding of the dark colors into the top layer of light colors. And I will say that I have found that to be true with these paints. As you're watching, if you're wondering what sketchbook I'm using, this is a watercolor sketchbook from Strathmore, and I will link it down below in the description box along with the gouache that I'm using as well. I've had this sketchbook for a little over a year now, and I've really enjoyed it. I've worked in it with both watercolor and gouache And it's held up really well to both. The pages are nice and thick. The only problem I've had is that I like to use both sides of the paper, and sometimes when I use the back side, like the other side across from the clouds that I'm painting, if I use that in watercolor, then sometimes it isn't the most absorbent, or the watercolor will kind of fray a little bit around the edges. And but I think that's because with watercolor you're really only supposed to paint on one side of the paper. So a lot of times what I'll end up doing is working on that side of the page in gouache, because I found that it really holds up just fine to that. I don't have any problems with it. If anyone has found a watercolor sketchbook that they are able to paint on both sides of the paper, and it reacts well to watercolor on both sides, I would really appreciate it if you would leave the name of that sketchbook for me in the comments down below, because I'm always on the hunt for the best products out there, and I would really love to have a sketchbook where I didn't have to worry about painting on the backside of the paper if such a product exists. My final step in this painting is to go in with some straight white gouache and add some highlights to the clouds. Now I'm going to go ahead and remove the washi tape that is around this painting. I love putting washi tape around my paintings in my sketchbook because it creates such a nice, clean, crisp edge. With that, I want to thank you all for joining me on my channel today for this painting, and I hope to see you here again soon.